for a very long time, longer than I ever admitted out loud. I lived inside a strange, heavy fog, a kind of emotional lethargy that felt impossible to name. It wasn't sadness, exactly. It wasn't stress, at least not in the way most people describe stress. It was more like waking up each day inside a soft, gray cloud with no edges, no directions, no sense of north or south. I didn't know where I stood in the world, and I definitely didn't know where I was going. I moved through my days almost automatically, like someone drifting down a river with no paddle, letting the current decide everything. And the most confusing part was this: I didn't even realize I was lost. That's the frightening thing about mental fog. When you're inside it, you think it's normal. You think you're fine. You think everybody else feels like this too. Until one day, you notice that people around you seem to actually know what they're doing. They make decisions with purpose. They talk about goals. They move with direction. Meanwhile, you feel like you're being pushed around by life, reacting instead of choosing, responding instead of leading, improvising instead of deciding. If you're reading this, maybe you're there right now. Maybe you feel disconnected from your own future. Maybe nothing feels grounded. Maybe everything feels slow, blurry, or pointless. Maybe you've been living on autopilot for years. And honestly, you might not even recognize it as a problem, not yet. When we're stuck inside that inner fog, awareness is the last thing we have access to. But in this text, I want to show you two powerful things that helped me break out of that fog, step out of that mental matrix, and finally see my life with clarity and purpose. They are simple, not easy, but simple, and they changed everything for me. These two shifts allowed me to finally zoom out, to stop obsessing over the tiny, pointless corner of life I thought was the whole world, and instead see the full picture with perspective, coherence, and meaning. They helped me replace confusion with clarity, randomness with intention, and stagnation with movement. And today, my hope is that they can open the same door for you. Before I explain the two tools that changed everything, I want to go back a little and tell you how this fog began. Because the story itself contains clues that might illuminate your own experience. The season of my life when I wasn't really living. For most of my late teens and early 20s, including my high school years and the first half of my college experience, I was basically living inside a mental flatline. I didn't realize it at the time because I didn't have anything better to compare it to. But looking back, I can see just how deeply I was disconnected from myself. I wasn't building a future. I wasn't choosing anything intentionally. I wasn't growing. I wasn't learning. I wasn't questioning. I wasn't awake. I was drifting. Most of my decisions were based on nothing. I wasn't guided by values, dreams, clarity, or personal standards. I wasn't even guided by emotion. I was guided by default, by whatever happened to be in front of me. Like many young adults in small towns, I was surrounded by people who weren't expanding their lives, they were repeating them. They weren't exploring new ideas, they were recycling old habits. And I mirrored that environment without even noticing. My routine was predictable, almost mechanical. During the week, I did whatever needed to be done, classes, assignments, errands, the usual. But the weekends, those were numbing rituals disguised as fun. Alcohol was everywhere. Parties were everywhere. Escapism was everywhere. And because it was what everyone around me did, I thought, well, this must be what life is supposed to feel like. That was the moment when I started living what I now call mental obesity, consuming everything, digesting nothing, filling myself with noise, distraction, habits, and behaviors that felt easy but left me empty. I surrounded myself with people who were stuck in their own loops, and so I naturally adopted their loops too. And the worst part, I thought that was adulthood. I thought life was supposed to be endured, not built, escaped, not shaped, dulled, not sharpened. It took me years to understand that I wasn't living, I was sedating myself. The first shift, fixing my routine so my mind could finally wake up. Everything started to change when I stumbled online, purely by chance, into people who lived differently. And I don't mean glamorous influencers or fitness models showing off perfect lifestyles. I mean normal, grounded people who were just deeply intentional about their lives. People who had discipline. People who had routines. People who had vision. People who took their days seriously. It was YouTube, honestly. And Instagram too. Not in a superficial sense, but in the way that once you teach the algorithm what you need, it starts delivering you exactly the right voices. I started following fitness creators, runners, people who talked about sleep, discipline, habits, neuroscience, resilience. Things I never even cared about before. And gradually, these people began to rewire how I understood life. They made me realize something obvious, but life-changing. My routine was destroying me. I didn't have a schedule. I didn't have structure. I didn't sleep at consistent hours. I didn't fuel my body in healthy ways. I didn't exercise. I didn't protect my energy. I didn't manage my time. I didn't organize my goals. I was living in pure, unmanaged chaos. And then wondering why everything felt meaningless. So the first major change I made was incredibly simple. I began building a real routine. I don't mean a military-style routine or a hyper-optimized productivity calendar. I mean basic, foundational life order. I created a consistent sleep schedule. I began waking up earlier, not early, just earlier. I cut down on late-night socializing. I said no to things that ended at 4 a.m. I reduced alcohol. I started reading. I started moving my body. I gave priority to things that made me feel stable. It felt tiny at the time, almost embarrassingly small, but the effect was huge. My sleep improved first, which improved my mood. My mood improved, which improved my motivation. My motivation improved, which improved my discipline. My discipline improved, which improved my clarity. Routine gave my brain what it desperately needed, a consistent rhythm to operate at full power. And once my brain woke up, the fog started to lift. The mental lethargy faded. The sack of sand in the head feeling dissolved. The confusion thinned. The world widened. I started seeing connections between things. I started having insights. I started making decisions. I started feeling like my life mattered. I started thinking long-term for the first time ever. And this wasn't magic. It was biology. When your circadian rhythm stabilizes, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, self-control, focus, and decision-making, finally works properly. And once that switches on, your entire world changes. The second shift, feeding my mind with new knowledge until new doors appeared. Once my routine stabilized, something beautiful happened naturally. I started to study, not because I had to, not because someone told me to, but because I genuinely wanted to understand life. Remember how I said earlier that for years I lived in a tiny mental tunnel where the only things visible were alcohol, parties, and random distractions. Well, once the fog lifted, I realized how incredibly small my worldview really was. I was seeing 3% of the world and assuming it was 100%. When I started learning new things, especially about neuroscience, psychology, fitness, biology, human behavior, and personal development, it felt like windows were opening in my mind. And behind each window, there was another window, and another, and another. Knowledge didn't just teach me facts, it expanded my perception. It gave me new ways of seeing myself and the world. You can't choose a door if you don't know it exists. You can't pursue a lifestyle you've never seen. You can't desire a future you've never imagined. You can't build a life you've never witnessed. Studying revealed doors everywhere. For example, before learning about exercise science, the idea of working out wasn't even on my radar. That door wasn't closed. It didn't even exist in my field of vision. But the more I learned, the more that door appeared, opened, and became part of my identity. And that's how knowledge works. If you're not studying, you're not choosing, you're imitating. You're copying whatever environment you're placed into. You're mirroring whatever people you happen to be around. You're absorbing whatever content you scroll past. Studying gives you autonomy. Knowledge gives you direction. Ideas give you alternatives. Understanding gives you clarity. It's not about becoming a scholar. It's about developing perception. You need input, real input, to build a mind that can see the world holistically instead of locally, intentionally instead of blindly, expansively instead of narrowly. The combination that finally broke the matrix for me. These two shifts, fixing my routine and feeding my mind, didn't just help me feel better, they transformed my entire life. Together, they gave me something I never had before: clarity. Clarity creates direction. Direction creates momentum. Momentum creates purpose. Purpose creates fulfillment. With a clear mind and an educated perspective, I could finally see the world from above, like stepping out of a crowded room into a balcony with a panoramic view. The Matrix wasn't some mystical spiritual metaphor. It was simply the limited worldview I inherited from the environment around me. When your mind sleeps, your life sleeps. When your mind wakes up, your life wakes up. And waking up begins with a routine that stabilizes your biological system, knowledge that expands your mental system. Fix your rhythm, feed your mind. Everything else begins there. Final thoughts from my heart to yours. I know this was a lot. I know this was deep. I know some parts might have hit hard. And that's good. It means something inside you is waking up. Think about what I shared. Talk about it with someone you trust. Reflect on your current routines, environments, inputs, and mental spaces. Because here's what I truly believe with all my heart. There is no version of your life that improves without clarity. And there is no clarity without routine and knowledge. These two tools changed everything for me. And if you apply them consistently, they can change everything for you too. I'm rooting for you. Always. Jenny Tours, Happy Aura Channel.